welcome everyone to the Barcoding Huddle. I'm your host, I'm Jody Costa. I'm the Vice President of Marketing with Barcoding Incorporated. Barcoding is a supply chain automation innovation company, and we are dedicated to efficiency, accuracy, and connectivity. And we are here today for a very special huddle with a very special partner. And so if you guys out there are excited about talking about the combination of Barcodes and Infor EAM, you are in the right place. So at this point, I'd like to go ahead and invite my panelists to come back on. So Jim, come on back. Noel, Peter, please join me. And I'm going to go ahead and get my screen share stopped. There we go. So Peter, once you are able to join, we will get started. So as I mentioned, welcome to the huddle. Welcome all of you to the Barcoding Huddle. We're happy to have you here today. And I'm very excited about our conversation. I feel like we're going to cover a lot of ground, and based on all of our prep work, I know that we have a lot that we want to get to. So just to get the ball rolling, we're going to start with some introductions, make sure that the audience knows who they're going to be talking with today. And speaking of that, audience, you have a chat function. And by now, I'm pretty sure we all know how to use Zoom. So use that chat function. If you have questions throughout the conversation, we will get to them either live or over the chat. And if we don't get to you live, we will definitely follow up. So feel free to participate as much or as little as you like. But let's start with introduction. So coming from our partner Infor, Jim, I would love to start with you. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself and some of your background, that would be great.
Hey, Jody, thanks for having me today. Yeah, Jim Charbonneau. I'm with Infor EAM. My current role, I'm an account executive in the EAM group in North America. I'm a solution architect, a value engineer, and a consultant. I've spent the last 25 years in the industry with a balance of consulting firms like Accenture, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and Wipro. And on the engineering product side, I've been with ABB and IBM and SAP along the way. So barcoding and EAM are a big part of my world. I'm really happy to be here today.
That's awesome. Well, we're happy, and thank you again to Infor for participating with this on this huddle. I really appreciate it. Peter, I'm going to jump over to you next.
Sure. Thank you, Jody. My name is Peter Zielinski, and I work for Barcoding Inc. My current role is the Director of Partner Solutions. And I've been involved in automatic identification and data capture for well over 20 years, and really focused on kind of the pointy end of the spear where barcodes happen, either generating them or capturing them. Little interesting tidbits. I used to be a high school teacher, so I'm very much, shall we say, education forward when it comes to how I approach the topic. So I want to make sure people have a clear understanding of what they're getting themselves into if they're talking about barcodes and Infor EAM.
And I know for a fact, I've learned a ton from you, Peter. So you're still doing a good job as a teacher out there today. But yes, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. And Noel, how about you jump in there?
Sure. Welcome. Good to be here. Thanks for attending today's event. We're excited about it. I'm the business development manager here at Barcoding. Really oversee our relationship between both Barcoding and Infor, and work as a liaison between the two organizations. And bring a lot of our SMEs, our subject matter experts like Peter and other team members together for projects that customers have. So we're excited about sharing some of the information we've prepped for today, and based on a lot of the good questions you guys have already submitted, we're well on our way to having a really great conversation. So great to be here and looking forward to it.
Thanks, Noel. And yes, good segue. We are here to talk very specifically about barcoding and Infor EAM, and really around accelerating the speed of business. So all of you out there, you registered for this event, and I think hopefully what you saw there of interest was how to standardize and accelerate, right? I mean, sometimes these things seem like competing concepts, but they're not. So how can we standardize? How can we accelerate the speed of business transactions, while also meeting the needs of users? Because users, the humans, right, are an important, critical component of any technology adoption. So we have a lot to talk about. We know it's a highly disrupted world out there, lots going on in our space. So without further ado, I want to jump right in. And I think a natural place for us to start is with our partner Infor and Infor EAM. So there again, we know there's been a lot going on. Jim, I want to start with you and just kind of give us the state of the state. Let's start level setting there, and then we can jump into how we can do more.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Yeah, I'm really impressed with the list that we got for today's session, because for me, I look at it and there's almost a 50-50 split, I think, of the user community and the consulting community. And both have reached out and come to us today for to hear from Pete and I and talk about, what's going on. So at Infor EAM, the reason I came to Infor first and foremost is that having worked with the likes of SAP, Maximo, a lot of the mid-tier products, Infor's data structure is the most superior in the EAM space today. It has every aspect of full asset lifecycle management. It's got failure mode. It's got problem cause remedy. It's got asset investment plan. And that data structure is awesome. It's phenomenal. You don't need a whole lot of bolt-on products to be a best practice maintenance user in Infor, because it's all there. Now, that's sort of the good news or the bad news. The bad news is that with such a large data structure, you need to feed it. And how do you do that exactly? So in the mobile paradigm, it's about going out, dispatching our workers to purposeful work, to the right place at the right time with the right tools and right materials, all that paradigm. We've all talked about that a whole lot. At the end of the day, they're all dependent upon two things: the mobile device they have in their hand and understanding what they're looking at in terms of the asset or the failure or the things that they're presented to them. And sometimes it's evident, sometimes it's not. And for me, it's about the barcode. If you've got a brass plate, in the old days, we used to have these little brass plates on motors, pumps, or assemblies. It had a serial number, had who it was made by, all this cool stuff. And now it's a laser etched barcode or QR code of some sort. And we're able to scan that with a number of different devices and get the real deal. I know exactly what that device is. I know exactly what that is. The location services on my device tell me it's exactly here. And that maps back into the EAM system that to a hierarchy or piece in the a place in the asset structure that says you're at the right place doing the right things. And we're dependent upon that barcode to do that. So barcoding and barcodes and QR codes and the like are really, really important to the ability to capture data and get your data quality right.
Now, Jim, are there certain components about Infor EAM specifically that the audience should know about here, so that as we start talking, they're familiar with terms that get thrown out? So I know you guys have a myriad of apps and different components. Do you want to kind of give us the rundown, so as we reference those, we'll know what's what?
Yeah, I mean, like any product company, we rename the heck out of things. Right? So our mobile platform and all our mobile applications are now known as digital work. And according a few of the questions here ask, does that replace the transit one? There's two product lines or multiple product lines, and they're all sort of part of the digital work product family now. So there is still a transit version for those of you that asked of the Infor mobile for transit, and it's very specific to the transit tasks and personas and transit user community that it services. And then lastly, there's the more general EAM, and there's three levels there. There's your digital work, there's your requester, which is again a more streamlined requester, sort of one-way communication back to the host or to the mothership to tell them I've got a problem. And then there's the advanced license, which gives you the ability to customize apps or tailor apps and do things like that. So that's what's new. It's called digital work. And again, if you have mobile digital work, at the end of the day, if you're going to reduce clicks, increase usability, focus on user experience, barcoding, QR codes, and coding, and in general terms, all the things Pete's going to tell us about or talk about today, Pete. What's new and exciting there on the barcode side for me?
Well, let's kind of go back in time and recognize that all those little brass plates were a real great source of misinformation, because all those little brass plates were manually created. Somebody actually, I had a collection of stamps, metal stamps, and a hammer for creating serial numbers on those brass. Oh yeah, for creating serial numbers on those brass plates, and that was great for identifying whatever it was attached to. But then the poor soul on the other end who had to put that into an information system usually keyed it in using their fingertips. So we would have 2 to 10 to 100 different records for the exact same asset in the system, because some people would put in spaces, some people would put in hyphens, other people would just mistype the information, and it was just crazy. It's total chaos. Barcodes make everything simpler because you have one source of truth. It goes back to EAM as being, here's your identifier, print that out as a barcode, whether it's a QR code or some other generation of barcode that clearly identifies that product, and then you get true asset to system data mapping. There's a million ways to go about doing that. We tend to standardize on Bartender as our favorite platform for generating barcodes, but there's a lot of different ways to skin that cat. Really, what you're looking at is how durable does that asset tag have to be? What's it being applied to? Under what conditions does it have to last? And making sure that that part of it supports the information you're putting on top of it. And we're experts at that. That's what we do day in and day out. I mean, getting a barcode on a product is something you can call us up for at any time, and we'll help you with that. Getting it to work with EAM, then we got to get Jim involved, because there has to be a single source of truth that you're basing all of this stuff on. And yes, you can use third-party information, as long as you use that third-party information to enter it into the system in EAM.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it seems like, and Noel, I mean, this is probably what kind of drove the partnership. It seems like these are the reasons why, kind of Barcoding Inc. Of the Barcode fame and Infor EAM kind of struck that partnership in the first place, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this is where, our world at Barcoding, we certainly have a ton of expertise in creating these identifiers. Peter mentioned a couple of different forms for that. Some of the questions that we had, some of the submissions were, and this will be a topic we'll cover on, but the distinction between a 1D barcode, a 2D barcode, an RFID tag. When we'll talk about all those in a bit, I'm sure, in depth, but each one of them, they're really a license plate identifier. So just like your car driving down the street, you have that DMV issued identifier from the state, and that's defined and that points to your specific vehicle. That's the same approach we want to take with the strategies of, what are the assets we're identifying, and come up with a clear, concise, cohesive method for doing this. And whether it's, Peter, you and I have been involved in projects for oil rigs, right? Of high pressure,
Oh, yeah.
of high pressured drills that are going under the water and into the earth. And companies want to identify those things because they're expensive. So that's an example of, probably some of the most extreme environmental exposure you can have. And believe it or not, there are identification capabilities for that. There are even RFID tags that can stand up to those kinds of environments. So that's something interesting. I think we want to talk a little bit about that more in depth. And there was a specific question. I'll throw it back to you guys. That distinction between 1D, 2D, RFID. And I think I order it in that way on purpose, because we know, probably the degree to which of information can be encapsulated there. You guys want to talk a little bit about that? What you've seen in terms of, user adoption and strategies around the different ways to identify assets?
Hey, Jim, mind if I might take the lead on that one just to get it started?
Yeah, get it going, Pete.
So, I mean, for the audience, you have to differentiate between the carrier for the information and the information that's encoded. If we're talking about data, that's the information. The barcode itself is just a carrier for that information. It's a machine-readable way of transferring asset information from the asset into your system. So if you're doing a one-dimensional barcode, we just consider that a linear barcode. That's your standard bars and spaces. How is that information being encoded in there? Is it using a GS1 standard that has auto identifiers, or is it just a straight code 39, what you see is what you get? That's kind of the standard, the initial standard for a 1D barcode. Now, 2D barcodes are wonderful in a couple of different ways. One of them is you can put a lot of information in a very small space and guarantee readability under a wide variety of conditions. They're very durable in that respect. On the other hand, they also have the ability to encapsulate those automatic identifiers, or those AI codes, that allows you to put separate fields and multiple fields in the same barcode. Now you have to contrast that with the URL version of a QR code. which is a link back to a specific page within an AIDC or a web-based or a cloud-based system using that URL. It's the type of QR code you'd use at a restaurant to pull up a menu, for example. Again, all things that are machine readable that serve a purpose. When you get into RFID, now you're talking about machine readable information that can be read usually at a distance. We're not talking about the NFC stuff where it's like near contact. You might as well have a barcode at that point, as far as I'm concerned. We're talking about things that can be read en masse at a distance. And RFID has a bunch of different standards, but the RAIN RFID standard is probably the most prominent and popular for call it retail and even business to business, because you're encoding things in a way that is universally recognized. There's a lot of varieties of RFID encoding, and there's a lot of different technologies wrapped around that. Simplified to say that it's a way of doing a machine readable transfer of information at a distance that supports a workflow. It's all got to be back to that user experience. What are you trying to accomplish? How are you enabling the user to make use of this asset as a part of their workflow? Do they need to read 1,000 of them at a time? If not, if they need to read them one at a time, you should be using a barcode, not an RFID tag, because an RFID tag is inherently designed for multiple reads of multiple things all at once in a very short period of time. If you want unique asset identification, a barcode is usually the preferred way if you're trying to do them on a one-by-one basis. That being said, you can still use RFID and differentiate that stuff just through proximity. But if you've got 5 different things in a short space of time that you're trying to do a cycle count on, RFID is awesome because it can tell you those things are all within readable range. But if you want to specifically drill down to one item, combine that RFID tag with a barcode tag, a QR code, or a 2D data matrix code on that asset so that you can drill down and be specific and not be distracted by any possible misreads. That'd be my focus.
Oh,
and again, back to the user experience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know what? It's really important you touched upon all those things. What I wanted to bring up is that at Infor and EAM, we have a wide industry installation base. We oil and gas, utilities, manufacturing, very strong manufacturing. So, maintenance is the same paradigm in different environments. Now, the other thing we're up against, and COVID now, is really bringing us to the fore. I think a few years ago, we all discussed, went to all kinds of conferences and talked about the knowledge worker paradigm. You know what I mean? And we're saying, oh, well, our old guys like me are retiring or winning the lottery. You're one lottery ticket away from all that knowledge going out your door. And you're at the guy's retirement party, and there's a big cake, and as the manager, you're just like, not happy because this guy was your top troubleshooter. He knew where every part was and all that stuff. So you're hoping about this capturing the knowledge, was important. But what's different today is because of COVID, we don't have people. We can't hire people. A lot of my customers are saying, Jim, how can mobile help me? Because I only have half the workforce. I can't hire enough maintenance guys. They've all got better jobs as truck drivers since COVID. And things like that. So that it's really changing it. And then the other piece for me around the user experience and our worker, and why we as solutions people and as maintenance directors, we had to get smarter, because at the end of the day, our technicians, the people coming into our organization, either through right out of college or out of school or as apprenticeship programs into our maintenance environment, sometimes we've converted production workers that were just really good at knowing our business into maintenance things. Maintenance people and things like that. The problem there is that a lot of these younger generations, and I'm starting to sound like an old guy now, but at the end of the day, a lot of these users are gamers. They come up through the gaming, and they like fast, they like responsive, they like colorful, they like to define their own personas. Because in a video game, I can be who I want to be, and I can arm myself with whatever weapons I want. Well, in the industrial context, you can't. You're a maintenance guy, here's your tools, go do your thing. And that bores the heck out of some of these younger people. So we need to give them more mobile, more responsive, more reactive, failure proof, fault proof, because they want the right thing right now. And this is where barcoding and coding gives it to us. When they walk into a warehouse, they don't care. They don't even know what the part looks like that they're looking at. They're going to take their scanner and they're going to point it at the shelf and really hope it hits a barcode for the thing that they're looking for. And, that's really important, because otherwise, they're going to come back and say, couldn't do it, didn't want to do it, no parts, nothing. And that the part was there, that the knowledge was there. And it's a matter of, giving those, that level of worker and those workers in today's maintenance environments, the things that they want and need. And the thing is, that's the pressure on us to do that. So a lot of my customers were consulting, going in and doing some value engineering studies, seeing where they're at, capability, maturity modeling, data quality, and all this great stuff. And at the end of the day, it doesn't mean a thing if the device you've got doesn't have the barcode to hit it.
Right.
Yeah, I got a good example for that one, Jim. You got a case where mobility is key to success in maintaining inventory accuracy, because if the worker can go to that workplace, get into his bin and scan out the parts that he needs, we know what parts he used, and therefore we know what parts are left. I mean, some of these assets on those individual units, they could be sitting on the shelf for 2 to 5 years and be worth tens of thousands of dollars. And if we think it's there and it's already been used because somebody didn't have a mobile device to check it out so that they could do their preventive maintenance using that particular part, if we think it's there and they suddenly need one, it's not there. That piece of machinery will not go back into commission anytime soon, because a part that we thought was on the shelf isn't actually there. Mobility is really key to maintaining that single source of truth and keeping your inventory accuracy.
Yeah. No, I remember, Pete, one time when I was in the rail industry, I'd send a bunch of guys out to repair a locomotive, and it was a big hydraulic hose had snapped off, and there was no way of really patchworking it. The guy said they'd made 3 different trips, 2 different guys to the storeroom to find this hose. And then they decided, oh, this is no good. And it's a Saturday morning, of course, so I'm paying overtime. They said, we can't do this. So they called up one of our custom suppliers and said, can you make me this 22-inch, 3/4-inch high pressure hose with the armor on it? The guy, oh yeah, piece of cake, man, I'll have it for you by 1 o'clock. And of course, that cost me a lot of money. And then I came back on Monday morning to see the work order, and I saw the cost of doing that job. And sure enough, we got the train out. That was a fantastic thing. Customer service, the ultimate. But you know what it cost me? It cost me $400 more than it should have, because there was 3 of those bloody hoses hung up on a shelf, properly tagged, and the guys didn't know where it was. They didn't, right? They had the wrong barcode, or the wrong part number. And the barcode was there. All they really needed to do is scan it, and they would have got the right thing. Would have saved me 5 or 6 hours of overtime and $300 for a bloody hose. So, every maintenance guy's got a story like that, but this is why it's important to get it right the first time.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, what I love is that we've already covered a lot of ground. And so I'm going to try to take a pause here and let, cover a few things for the audience, right? So we talked right at the very beginning, you might've missed it, but it was really important about the database itself, right? So this is this machine that we're feeding. And then we talked about the barcoded assets as then that data, how that data moves is feeding that database, right? And that's really what's going to drive ultimately your business decisions. But then we added that extra layer of complexity, which is people, always the complex element. And we talked a little bit about how those people use the barcode, the vehicle of data capture, right, on those assets. How do people use and interact with these things? And that's really, we're going to start to talk about the tool that's used to scan those, right? So when you start to break these things down, they all interrelate. They're all part of the same solution. And I'm assuming when we get started with customers, people are starting in lots of different areas depending on their maturity in any of those different areas. Is that right, Pete? I see you laughing, and I'm on the right track here, right?
Oh yeah, you're on the right track.
So if I'm out there and I know we can't cover all of the places that people get started, but how would I start to think about this? What's the best approach?
I would look at tools fit to purpose. So look at your workflow, look at what you're trying to identify, look what you're trying to accomplish, and go, what form factor does this need to be in to be the most effective and most efficient? And, sky's the limit. We'll bring you down to reality, but it really does come down to paying attention to that user experience. If it needs to be illuminated so that they can see it, give them a flashlight. If it needs to have a barcode that's readable, make sure when you put the barcode on the asset that it's exposed when it's in work, when it's a working piece of equipment. If they've got to disassemble it to get at the barcode that identifies the product, you didn't do your job, right? And we've seen that.
Yeah. No, good point. Jim, do you have any other advice for people in terms of how to get started?
Yeah, it's a combination. Right? If you look at people, process, and technology, um, I like the word technology. You have to enable this, right? So in the old days, as a solutions guy, gee, we got to do the Windows, and now Android, and now Apple and stuff. So that's all gone. I mean, all our applications run on all those. I think the Windows mobile platform is a dodo, and it's gone that way. But you can go into the Google Play Store or the Apple Store and download versions of all the apps and things like that. You can do that today. And then make sure you've got the enabling technology on the back end. So, as Infor is an industry leader in cloud, AWS cloud. Well, that cloud architecture is there. It's invisible. So it's ready. It's plug and play. All the devices can fit to it. I know we're going to have a device discussion here, but I think it's really important to get the technology right because it enables the vision. It allows you to understand how far you can go. And then you put a solution roadmap together and say, how much is that going to cost me in the next 18 months? If the mandate from the CIO or CTO is paperless, we got to be paperless work orders, paperless purchase orders by the end of the year. And here's the business case and the value realization strategy, how we're going to do that. But it's all predicated on the blind trust that the technology that you're going to enable is there. And the subset of that, of course, is that the database, data structure, and data quality is optimal, is there. So you worked out the bugs, the duplication, the concept of digital twin, right? The digital twin is the whole reason why barcode is important, because on the back end of this, we're going to create data structures around digital twinning that's going to standardize that, and we're going to order all our parts to this cookie cutter, and we're going to have, instead of 3 styles of pumps or operating system, we're going to have one, and that digital twin is going to be robust, solid, all the data we need, and it's what the barcode's going to hit. That's where the knowledge, single point of truth is going to come back from the barcode. So all these things, for me, technology is everything, but then you can imagine the impossible. How do I get these guys to work more effectively? How can I reduce spoilage? How can I make sure that I can reduce my inventory because I've got duplications and I don't really know, and of course the efficiencies around that.
Well, and how do I work in a disconnected environment? Because when I'm in the field doing, repairs, I don't always have a full 24/7, 365, 5 gigabyte connection to the internet.
Right.
So how do I handle these kind of offline situations? And I know Infor has apps for that, but you also have to make sure that you're prepared and know in advance that you're going to an offline situation so that you've got your tools fit for purpose and designed to support you in that task.
Yeah, let's talk about those tools actually. So Noel, I want to kind of draw you back in here. Well, we talked about, barcodes and really kind of making sure that barcoding system is in place to work with Infor EAM, helping to both speed up and standardize at the same time. But only a critical component of that is that tool and how you scan. So do you want to talk through some of the thought processes that Barcoding Knowledge brings to the table, Barcoding Inc., when we talk about the actual mobile devices themselves?
Sure. So from a mobile device standpoint, there are a number of different, again, we talk about people, process, technology. There are people that come into play, and we need to really fit in a device that's fit to purpose, right? That's fit to the environment. So for example, there are tasks, and Jim, you can take up the back end of this conversation around the Infor side relative to the personas and the workflow within Infor that's being leveraged. But if it's a mobile requester type of application, that might be sort of light and breezy from a standpoint of the user interaction. From a field maintenance perspective, I spot a leak coming out of the ceiling, right? And so now I need to notify a technician that, hey, we've got a leak, right? So that might take place on a company issued phone. You name it, whether it's iOS or Android, it wouldn't really matter. And there might not even be scanning at that point. That might just be, here's where I am and here's who I am. Now, fast forward, that work order is generated within the EAM world, and that task assigned now comes out the technician. So now we really need to think about sort of that more purposeful device. And that's where from, in the barcoding world, we get into consultation around what does that device look like? What are the needs? Is that environment ambient temperature? Is it cold storage? Is it, what are some of these environmental impacts that will affect what device we recommend for that task? And then, we're not using just data entry like we might have on the front end, or just the camera to scan a barcode. Now that guy's role is going to be enough where he's probably scanning fairly intensively throughout the day. So we want to have a device that's got a purposefully built in 2D, 1D capable imager that can actually read barcodes real efficiently. So that's sort of some of the efforts that we try to take customers through that journey and that investigation, that series of questions, and understanding the day in the life when we get involved. Jody, you asked a little bit about how did the partnership come about too. Let me just circle back to that for a second. So both Barcoding and Infor, we worked collaboratively on several different projects over the years, going back a few years, some of which were really quite massive. We're talking, city, state, government type projects. And so it only made sense that, our worlds became more official, and that's we became an official Infor Alliance partner. And the ability to, select a device and deploy the device is a big important part of that. But also we were talking through strategies around how do we create these barcodes? What kind of tools are we going to use? Whether it's, a simple pre-printed barcode that we provide them, we set them up with tools that allow them to produce their own identification, or we're getting, perhaps a lot more intense around the engineering effort because it's something much more customized, where we're either talking, like Peter mentioned, GS1 compliance or RFID, or we didn't even really mention IoT yet, right? So that's another element to this. So to hand that off, Jim, do you want to talk a little bit, or just maybe you guys want to pick up those workflows? I sort of start at the beginning, maybe with that request, the operator kind of comes through and they're now in the field, the technician is in the field work app, Jim, right? From a use case, what's sort of the next steps about how maybe they're using barcodes or data collection? I'll throw it out to either one of you guys.
Yeah, the requester persona is really important because it's at the event state. There's a leak, there's an escape of energy, there's a failure, there's an event, there's a compelling event that needs some maintenance, interaction, or intervention. And but that person doesn't know that the steam or what's burning or what's not working well is at a system or component level. And that's where us maintenance reliability guys really do our job. Sure, it's making noise, but what's making noise? Is it the bearing? Is it the bearing carriage? What is it? And we can't really fix it, order the part, or get the right crews and crafts and skills out to a job so we really understand that point of failure and what it is, and consequences of failure, and all that really wonderful theory that we build our systems upon. So it's really important to have those personas broke out, but understand that they're going to be bringing scenarios, informations, events to us. And they expect us to have a response program on the back end, a prescribed maintenance strategy, the skills available, all that stuff in the back end of the system. And again, it comes back to the greatest evil, or the best thing about Infor EAM is our database is so robust with action codes, problem codes, fault codes, failure mode analysis, failure mode effect cause analysis, all these wonderful things that are in our database. And they get triggered by that event. And then we send a technician out, and what does he do? He wants to scan a barcode. The first thing he wants to know is that what is the part that he needs to get to or get at, and then reap the rewards of that barcode scan and get back all the information. So
let's talk about those two different scenarios, Jim.
Yeah.
Because in one case, you've got IoT in the background giving you a lot of information directly into Infor EAM from the equipment itself, right? There's a ton of events that are happening that people aren't reporting. The machinery itself is reporting all of this stuff.
Right.
Then you get somebody who walks by who says, "Oh my God, this thing's making a horrible noise," and they go, "Where's my requester app?" So they pull up their phone, they hit the requester app, and they basically identify, this is the machine that's causing me trouble, and that goes out to the system. Well, now you deploy the guy who's got to come out and handle this stuff. Well, he might have 6, 7, 8 barcodes in a small space. If he's going to use his phone and the camera to try to focus in on which one of those barcodes he's dealing with. I mean, we've all tried, it's COVID, right? We've all gone to restaurants and had to use those QR codes on the menu. And how often had you opened up your phone, gotten onto the picture, and spent time doing this with your phone, trying to get it to find that QR code, right? A field engineer doesn't have that time. So we give them a device that's got a targeting line. It's got a little green laser that points directly to that barcode. So we know exactly which QR code they're scanning, and it happens immediately so they can get on with their day. The last thing we want to do is give them more frustration when they're going about their business. So again, tools fit the purpose. Somebody making a casual, occasional request, they don't need a dedicated barcode scanner. The camera is going to do just fine. If they've got a QR code available, they can take the time. But somebody is doing mission critical work, they need tools that are going to allow them to do mission critical responses and response time. And that means being able to scan those barcodes cleanly and efficiently.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Sorry,
go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, that's a great segue, Pete, because the one thing I wanted to bring up is that in a previous life with a large engineering firm working with a pretty large oil and gas company, I was on a project and put in this really wonderful EAM system, and it was fantastic. I really so proud of that system. But the guys came to me and said, Jim, we got like a 4-day backlog on our work orders. Well, how the hell does that happen? You know what I mean? Well, the guys just, they don't have a whole lot of time. They're out there keeping the lights on, and they don't have time to close their work orders. So this is barcode and mobile devices are the secret to getting those requests converted into work orders, and those work orders closed with Pete's previous point around triggering the MRPs to reorder that part that we consumed and all that stuff. So really important. So the customer comes to me and says, Jim, I'm really frustrated. The guys have these mobile devices and they got, these are oil workers. They got, fingers the size of the claws on a bear, and they don't like these things, these little beautiful little tablets you gave them, and I thought, yeah, you're right. So we broke out a product called commercially, I'll tell you, it's called RealWear. And what it was a helmet-based Android device that had a little Google Glass as a viewer, and it was voice activated. And they said, well, can we get this work order so that all the fields on the work order are voice activated? I go, yeah, we can. And the camera is a barcode reader, by the way. So he can look at a barcode that's there, hands-free. So it starts with the barcode.
And you get the crosshairs.
Yeah, hits it, bang, because the location services and the asset structure that was on the back end, we knew exactly what it was. And then we were able to pop up on this viewer and this thing, 3 or 4 other barcodes or descriptions of failure modes that he could collect and select. We took and the workflow had all the sequential questions, if then else type of decision trees that we built out, and said, okay, but it all started with barcode. And from that point, then he could talk to the work order, put in a description, hands-free. And now, I got the close rate from 4 days on work orders to closing almost 300 work orders a day before the end of the shift. So all the data, all the transactions, all the MRPs, all the material transactions and labor hours and actuals and all that really cool stuff, and meter readings and observed things and follow-up work orders, all that cool stuff that we really need to do our maintenance things were there. And again, it goes right back to the idea that somebody had the vision to put the barcode right on there, and not just a little sticker. They took a laser etch, boom, and they laser etched it into the panel. And the guy was able to look at it with his Google Glass, and bing, we were up and at the races right there.
Now, I got another story along that line, because once in a while you'll get a guy up in the air, like say he's working on a turbine, one of those nice big wind turbines. He's using the Google Glass, and he's up there and he sees something he's never seen before, right? So now he's got an option. He can take a picture of it and take that picture and transmit it back to the head office. Or using that Google Glass and the camera that's built in, he can open up a session with somebody else who's seen this before and say, hey, what's going on here? Now he can collaborate in the field while doing his job. And that's using modern technology. This isn't rocket science. This isn't far future. This is right now, delivering now, in use now in the field.
Right. Well, and I think that's
totally revolutionizing how people work.
That's the interesting part, is what we're talking about here is all, they're all connected. So you talked about the sensors and the machines reporting themselves. You talked about wearables and scanning devices and different types to be in different use, but then also scanners are no longer just point and shoot, right? They're mobile computers. They have lots of opportunities to do lots of different things. And on top of it, right, I'm sure that someone wants to talk about a drone at some point. And, I mean, just on and on, right? So it really does come back, and we can't impress upon the audience enough. It really does come back to what's your ultimate business goal? What are those processes that you're looking to improve? And then what are the users going through in that particular moment? What's the environment that they're in and the work that they're doing? We did have someone in the chat, talking about, these devices and these tags and dirty environments, and how do we take that into consideration? Well, yes, it has to be built into the solution as we start to learn about your business, and we go from there. But all these things are possible, and they're being, as Peter said, they're in use today.
Yeah. To Teresa's question about the dirty environments, what we found really useful in the rail industry and mining industry was to print these barcodes on reflective materials. It wasn't, and it did help the capture, but it actually, when you had your flashlight, it brought your attention to that sticker. You know what I mean? That reflection caught your attention, went over, you wiped it down, and then you were able to grab the capture and things like that. And that's just actually that came to me by way of a suggestion plan on a project. One of the workers came up and said, geez, why don't we just print that on a reflective sticker? And we're all going like, why the hell would you want to do that? So this is why it's important. And a few of the questions were asked, how do you implement? How do you do that? So from a requirement definitions phase, reach out, talk to everybody on the front line, because they want to find the easiest way, the fastest way to do a job, so they can get upstairs in the lunchroom and play cards before they punch out. Okay, let's get that straight. It's not about, they want to do the job safely, most cost effectively. Our workers are the best. They really want and believe in our mission and that. But at the end of the day, they want some free time. If they want to go have a smoke or they want to play cards, you'll find, if you ask those guys, they'll find out the quickest way, safest way, best way. So for me, it's about participation breeds commitment. Involve everybody on the front line, and what's in it for them, give it to them.
Yeah, we 100% believe that, for sure.
It's all about the user experience.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of it, right? Because the worker, what you're trying to do is, right, that efficiency gain, that speed, dealing with the speed of transactions. But then at the same time, you need that standardization that we've been kind of talking about, that barcodes give you. I mean, that's what at the corporate, the organization level, you have to have in order to have that database integrity. So yeah, there's so much that we could talk about today. I do want to go back though, because Noel, you briefly mentioned it, and I think it's important for us to cover, and Jim, you may need to weigh in here as well. It's the printing of the barcodes. So let's just say, for instance, that we've kind of worked together. Are these tags or these barcodes able to be printed within the Infor EAM environment? Do they require a third-party application? Can we talk a little bit about the printing component?
Yeah, printing used to be the challenge. I think I know I had barcodes printed at the header of my work orders. That was one of the first innovations. This is back in the 80s to do that. But for example, barcoding and barcode printing. Anybody that's taken a flight and drove in a rental car into the airport, they have hip-mounted thermal printers, and they can pop out the receipt. And if you look, the barcode at the bottom is so that you can respond to a customer service survey, right? I mean,
oh yeah.
So there's an example where printing isn't the challenge it used to be. And again, I think the reflective sticker thing was, we didn't have to reinvent the wheel, because we could go get Avery labels that were reflective, and we could put them in the printer tray and laser print them. And so I think printing was once one of the barriers or challenges in the workplace. And I actually did a cost benefit on how many printer cartridges we were going to save in a year by going paperless work orders. I mean, it's crazy to think that way, but that's where we were. And you got down into the minutia and into the micromanagement of where are we going to find value. Well, you don't have to do that anymore, because there's a tremendous amount of value staring you right in the face with your mobile devices and the work processes and the automations that you're going to try and achieve.
And the other thing I'd add to that is, it really depends on that use case and understanding. If it's just barcode enabling a work order, a paper traveler, that's something self-sufficient any customer should be able to do. But if it's coming up with a real purposeful asset barcode that can stand the test of time or stand, even 6 months. Some scenarios, a paper label that's printed isn't going to cut it. Even some of the receipt printers where we're talking like a heat transfer, picture, you take the receipt from
I got horror
McDonald's.
stories if you got time.
Yeah, I'm sure you can share.
It'll
So,
you
before
do,
you get on the
Peter.
plane. Yeah.
so I think, just Peter, then you take this up from here, because I think this is where we've gotten, Barcoding and Infor have worked really well. We've gotten involved where, there's some complexity. There's a use case that says, hey, we really need this tag to stand that test of time to last the life cycle of the asset. And then we've supplied a few different scenarios, everything from a self-sufficient printed on your own on demand scenario to pre-printed scenarios where we're doing it on our industrial print presses that we have capabilities to use, Jim, that same exact material, retroreflective. But Peter, share, if you definitely have some, any kind of use cases or specific examples, they'd be interesting to hear.
I'm a huge fan of do-it-yourself solutions for piloting. I really want people to explore. There's a ton of freeware for labeling barcodes if you really want to just kind of go, what do I need to accomplish? How can I mock this up? But don't do that for a production environment. I had a customer who had free thermal transfer labels because they had UPS printers, and they found a way of doing all of their location tagging using Microsoft Word and a code 39 font they found online. Now, rather than using that for a pilot project to test things out, he deployed it throughout the entire warehouse in January. This is an ambient temperature warehouse. If you have a 40-foot ceiling, what is the temperature of your ambient temperature warehouse in August if you're in Phoenix? Let's just say it's rather warm. Let's just say it's upwards of 120 degrees up there. Thermal transfer labels turn gray as they get warmer.
Right.
That's how they work. So if you warm up the entire label, rather than getting nice little bars that you can scan, you have a gray piece of paper at elevation that no longer identifies anything. They had to go through and re-identify their entire warehouse. So I love do-it-yourself solutions for people trying to figure out how things can work. But when you want to make something permanent and use it in the field, get us involved, help us find those solutions, because getting a tag that will last in your environment, not only stick on that product and stay there, but be readable over time for the lifetime of that asset, you need to have the right mix of materials. If you're trying to put something on a motor that goes up to 3,000 degrees, you need a tag that's going to work in that environment. And that might be laser etching instead of an adhesive tag.
Right.
You may want to actually put that tag somewhere near the product that you're trying to identify, because you couldn't possibly put a tag on it because it's either vibrating, it's covered in grease or slime, or it's under a cover that no one else can get at. So we can help you work through those solutions, at least at a basic level, so that you're properly prepared to handle those initial identification environments. Because it's all about commissioning the tags that you can identify that thing as it enters your universe as a single source of truth for Infor, for your asset tracking, for your next workflow environment. Once it's out in the field, you want to be able to read it again, not just the first time, but every single time. We want to make sure that happens.
Yep, I agree. And it's kind of in our name. So if you're out there and that all just kind of washed over you, Barcoding Inc. can help you on the barcoding side. So, but I want to quickly pivot because we're running out of time, and we have a good question that came in around IoT. And I do think IoT was something we wanted to touch upon. So let's get into IoT and the implementation of communication from machine to work order to assigning spare parts. So Jim, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah. And thanks, Teresa, for those couple of questions. Number one, the IoT component in Infor is called ION OS, and the mobile or digital work application set is all integrated into that. So if you've got a machine-to-machine integration, if you're looking for IoT or OT feed from a machine, whether that's a meter or an event or things like that, there's a place for that to come into our event management capability Infor, and it leverages the Infor ION product line. So that's that point of integration. We also can couple that to other industry IoT things like OSI Pi or any of the event asset health type of solutions through web services and different technologies, whatever's there. You don't need a direct connection, so it'll all go back into the cloud through the Infor EAM. And then how you actually execute that in a project is it's a lot of design stuff. So to answer around using the QR field, a lot of the fields are enabled. Most of the header information particularly is enabled to have, there's a little button there you can press, and that'll expect you to scan in a barcode, right? And it'll take the numeric value, whatever prescribed value it is for that header information, which usually alphanumeric. Or in the case of a value from an IT perspective, you can't just type in ABCD. It has to be a numeric value within a range that's consistent with either the vibration or the temperature reading and things that it's looking at. So these fields are pretty smart and will prohibit you from putting in the wrong information, or at least information within a range, and it's alphanumeric or numeric in that case. So that's a matter of design and configuration, and that's everyday stuff when it comes to doing that. And again, the ION product is the point of integration for that. And it don't want to sound crazy, but it has endless potential and capability to do that. If you can design or define or provide access to the URL for a system, basically it's almost that simple. Is what's the output from the particular industry piece to and the data structure and the data values that you're trying to capture and abstract. You can do that. And then the other question you shed around laser etching. So the laser etching is really just a technique really of etching into a piece of steel or aluminum or things like that. And again, the Google Glass stuff is pretty interesting because it can recognize the sensitivity of some of these cameras are pretty cool. They don't have to be iPhone 13 to do that. Is they recognize the textures and things that you're doing. And if you haven't seen, I mean, some of the QR codes, you just flash your phone by it's grabbing it. So the QR the refinement and the resolution of the QR codes are really accurate, and the cameras match with the capability of the cameras, or the Google Glass in that case, can pick up and get. I haven't seen too many QR codes fail, to be honest with you. They're really highly responsive and reactive, and that's the trick to getting data into your system, and the integration through Infor EAM OS is the trick. So if you can whiteboard it, if you can say, I'd like to go from here to there. Let's pretend we're Tony Stark and you want to do augmented reality and you want the barcode to read that and pop up a virtual reality thing. Yeah, it's only time and money.
Well, that's a good segue, because I feel like we're getting to one of my my favorite places to wrap up conversations, which is what's next. So I know that we've already given everyone a huge amount to think about, but I'm curious what you guys all think. What's coming up next? Anyone want to take the first stab?
I'll repeat real quick is exactly that. The Google Glass, the RealWear that I've implemented, also has versions for augmented reality. So they do have heads-up displays, and if you can point the camera to the barcode, it will generate the image or drawing or specification, the data you're looking for on the inside of the screen. I mean, it's phenomenal stuff, and you're definitely getting into Tony Stark, Iron Man level of complexity because you can. You simply can get there. If you can think it and invest in it and enable it, you can do that. And the business case is almost always safety, right? What if we don't do this?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right? And so for me, the RealWear, the augmented reality, the camera technologies, all that stuff with barcoding, we're there now. If anything, we were there 2 years ago, and we should be there today.
Awesome. Peter, how about you? Is there dare I say is there a post barcode world?
No, I'll be perfectly honest. Barcodes have been around since 1973, and I think they're going to be with us forever, in the same way that pens and pencils are never going to leave your desk. But there's a lot of more sophisticated ways of using those things, especially since camera technology and Moore's law has been striding forward rapidly. I mean, it's gotten to the point where I'm expecting people to get rid of Android phones and just go to the Android watch. And use nothing but, because we've almost gotten to that point. The only thing we really want is that fold-out display, because we want a little bit more landscape to look at. Well, and that just comes back to what's available in the field right now to enable your mobile workers. And I'll be honest, I think we're pretty much cutting edge on all the devices we're putting in people's hands. 5G is going to terribly transform the landscape in what we can and cannot do out in the field. I mean, if you're up in a tower and you've got 5G connectivity, you are fully connected faster than you would be if you were at your desktop. You're getting more data and more available connectivity at that point. And if you're talking about IoT, there's ways of doing low latency bandwidth that allows IoT to communicate quietly, efficiently, and effectively over vast distances, and constantly feeding those data lakes with little bits of sensory information so that Infor can positively respond to changes and events that are happening out there in the field. So I see the kind of conglomeration of all of these different technologies working together and multiplying and breeding new solutions.
Yeah, I couldn't come at a better time too. I mean, we did touch upon it, but labor is the biggest factor. And so I think keep that in mind as you start to think through all of this. It really does come back to the people or the new people that are coming in or the lack of people that are coming in, frankly. So Noel, any thoughts on the future? Do you have a crystal ball out there?
Yeah, I do. So we've talked about stuff. This is similar to what Jim's stating, the fact that this stuff is there. It's bleeding edge. Blockchain is probably a technology I think we're going to start to see in our world being leveraged. It's again bleeding edge, right? But this idea of a ledger commonly shared within a corporation, and it's anonymous, it's secure, it's there's some validity to that. We need it to, certainly everyone's going to be rolling up their sleeves and working on that, but I think that's a technology that we'll be seeing much more of adopted. What was the other one I was thinking of? Yeah, I would say blockchain. Blockchain. The other one's.
I mean, you got the blockchain in there. I'm happy.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Block and chain,
Yeah.
Well, mobile stuff is, and again, the other thing is the mobile. And to Pete's point, the stuff's getting cheaper. I mean, I spent thousands of dollars on ruggedized devices, and then I realized that I can buy $130. Go to Best Buy or any of the online stores and get 2,500 of those, or 25 these, and they can break one a day because the cost of a downtime is far greater than the cost of that tablet. If the guy leaves it in the mine or steps on it, throws it away, I don't care. I do care, but it's not going to cost me a whole lot of money. So the economics or the cost of device and device maintenance, and this is why moving to cloud, Infor EAM and moving to cloud is the most cost-effective way to go, because you're reducing your IT footprint. And, along with digital work and mobile, we're there.
Yeah, I would caution folks just to go back to use case, because we will say there's times where you want to make sure that total cost of ownership is really well defined on the device. And also keep in mind that, because we're talking about mobile computers, there's tons of different ways of financing these things now that match the speed of refresh. So the device lifecycle is matched up to the financing of it. So it's not these big purchases that you make in bulk. It's something that you can pay over time. So keep in mind that there on the financial modeling side, there's lots of new options, as well as people get more and more sophisticated of what they need and how they can integrate all the different options that are available out there. So in some cases, you might want that throwaway. In some cases, you need that more ruggedized. So of course, I have to put that out there, Jim, because it's our business, but I would make that little caveat.
You always got me. No, thanks. No, get on.
But no, good points. And it is now is the time. I think, if anything, that's something that you should take away from this. The time is now. All these things are happening now. It is the appropriate time to get involved. Well, we are at our final minute. And so I want to do my rapid fire last question of the day to each of the panelists. And so, Jim, I'm going to start with you, but if you had to summarize a key takeaway for our audience, try to keep it to about 5 words. Any thoughts? Final takeaway.
Yeah, user experience. Talk to your people and give them what they need.
Love it. How about you, Noel?
To talk to the experts, or talk to people with talk to outside your organization, people with experience. The users are definitely important. Start there, and then expand that conversation and bring in other voices. You can see that Jim and Peter, folks like them have had tons of real world experience. So really great to overlay that on top of the user feedback you're getting, and then you start to drive to that goal and come out with a successful adoption.
Awesome. And Peter, final thoughts?
Focus on people, process, and technology, and make sure everything is fit to purpose. People don't always have to be a part of the solution directly, but they're always going to be a part of it indirectly. Make sure that need is being recognized.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, get those barcodes, but I mean, you guys summarized it really well.
Brilliant. Let's do that.
Yeah, let's do it. Well, I really want to thank Infor EAM, Jim. Thank you so much for participating today. Peter, Noel, lovely to have you as well. Barcoding Inc. and Infor EAM are here to help you. So if you have continued questions, we've dropped some contact information in the chat. We'll also be following up with you after this. So we have a recording coming your way, and all these experts are here to talk to you about your particular business, which we know is unique. So please don't be shy, reach out. We're here to help. And again, thank you to Infor EAM for being our partner here. Really great huddle today, and glad to spend some time.
Great job, Barcoding. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks all. Take
Bye.
care. Bye.
Hi. Did you enjoy the huddle? I sure hope so. We were really excited to have you as part of our conversation and would love to continue it. If you have a question or a challenge that you're facing and Barcoding can help you out, please reach out. You can contact us on barcoding.com anytime or any of our social media channels. Again, we are here to help and would love to chat with you. Final ideas. Did you like the huddle so much you wanted to join? Do you want to come on air with me? Do you know someone who would be a great fit or a topic that you'd like to see covered? If so, reach out to me via email or LinkedIn, and I am happy to check in with you and talk through what we might be able to accomplish together. I would love to hear your ideas. We're always looking for new topics. So if you have an idea for Huddle or you'd like to be on a Huddle, contact me and we will make it happen. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye.